The Miami Dolphins get some very positive injury news for what feels like the first time in a very long time. This entire training camp and preseason has been people dropping like flies. Cater Kohu, Alexander Madison, Artie Burns. Well, Miami finally gets a positive injury update on a couple players in their secondary. I'm Nick Roloff. We'll talk about all Dolphins injury news today. The 5 players we will be specifically taking a look at is Cam Smith, Dante Trader Jr., Elijah Campbell, Darren Waller, and Liam Eichenberg. But before we get into some of these injury updates, make sure you subscribe and make sure you have your notifications turned on because we are continuing to put out content a lot. 2 videos every day, weekly live shows on Tuesdays, as well as watch parties for every Dolphins game. And you don't want to miss any content we put out. Subscribe and make sure you click that notification icon. Click turn for all, not just personalized, so you get notified every video we put out. We'll start with Cam Smith, the former second-round pick in the 2023 NFL Draft. He is back at practice. It's about time. He's missed the last 6 practices with a soft tissue injury. Mike McDaniel never specified where the injury actually is, but we know he dealt with a hamstring injury last year, which cost him the beginning of the season. Maybe it's the same, maybe it's not. But this is an important time for Cam Smith because he is buried on this Dolphins depth chart. This was the unofficial depth chart that Miami put out last week before their first preseason game. They had him on the 3rd line behind Ethan Bonner, Jack Jones, and even Jason Marshall Jr. And if I'm going to be honest, I probably would have him here as well, just due to the fact that he has not been able to be on the football field. And with him missing the last 6 practices with this injury, this is a massive week for Cam Smith. I personally believe that he is on the outside looking in of the 53-man roster projection. If I had to put out the 53-man roster tomorrow for Miami, it would not include Cam Smith. And with 2 joint practices against the Detroit Lions and then a preseason game against them as well on Saturday, this is an opportunity for Cam Smith to get rid of the narratives, rise up the depth chart, and prove that he should be on this Miami Dolphins official roster when it comes in early September. The issue that he's also facing is that he doesn't have a guaranteed contract. Some second-round picks now do have fully guaranteed deals. That was the holdup this year. Jonas Savionai has a fully guaranteed deal, but that was not a thing when he signed his rookie contract a couple of years ago. So if Miami did decide to move on from Cam Smith and cut bait with the former second-rounder, they would get $1.4 million back in their cap because his contract, at least right now, is not guaranteed. So it puts Cam Smith at a little bit of an even more disadvantage because it's not like he has a guaranteed deal that makes Miami want to keep him more. No, if he can't play, he continues to struggle, and he's hurt again, well, he's going to be cut. So it's a big week for Cam Smith, but it's good that he's finally back practicing for this football team. Another piece of the secondary is returning. Dante Trader Jr., the safety from Maryland, who Miami selected in the 5th round of this NFL draft. He is finally returning to practice. He looked good in the first couple practices of training camp, suffered a lower body injury. It was not specified. It's not required that Mike McDaniel Miami does that in the preseason in training camp, but he returned to practice as well on Tuesday, so both Cam Smith and Dante Trader Jr. are available for both joint practices and assuming the preseason game on Saturday as well. And I'm going to talk more about Dante Trader here in a second, but I want to know what player you are most excited about returning to practice. Is it Cam Smith to finally see what he can prove, or is it Dante Trader Jr., the rookie that's been out for the first 2 weeks of his training camp experience? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. But you might be wondering why Dante Trader Jr. has been out. I mentioned it. It has been a lower body injury, not specified. He picked it up in the first couple of practices in camp. And listen, I'll be honest, I'm not on site. I'm not watching practices, so I can't use my own eyes to see who is doing well and who is struggling. But the early reports for Dante Trader Jr. were relatively positive. So he now comes back with an opportunity to claim a spot on this Dolphins safety room because coming into camp, it was a crowded 6-man room with Patrick McMorris on the outside looking in. But with Ashton Davis still out for an indefinite period, He's going to miss time during the regular season, but he is not going to be out for the year. Likely going to probably start the season on IR. You get 2 people on your roster that you can carry through the cutdown day, but put them on IR. So now Dante Trader Jr. has the chance to be the 4th safety for this Dolphins football team. If you project how it looks right now, it is Minka Fitzpatrick, it's Ifeatu Melifonwu, it's Elijah Campbell, and then that next spot's questionable. It could be Dante Trader Jr. It could be Patrick McMorris, who, by the way, I thought was solid in the preseason game against the Bears. He had an interception, but it was mostly thanks to Ethan Bonner being in tight coverage and getting his hand on the football, popping it up for McMorris. Either way, Dante Trader Jr. and McMorris, I think, will be fighting for that 4th safety spot, but I do anticipate all 5 of those players we just mentioned making this Dolphins 53-man group. And we'll stay in the safety room because we got an official update from Mike McDaniel on Elijah Campbell. We shared on a video yesterday that Campbell said he was fine following leaving the Sunday preseason game in the first half with a lower body injury. McDaniel said officially it is a day-to-day injury for him, and there is a chance that he participates in some of these joint practices and maybe even in the preseason game on Saturday. Now, if I would be honest here, I'd probably hold him out of the game against the Lions. No need to play him if he's slightly banged up because he does have a role on this team. And if you look at it, he's going to be the 3rd safety for the Miami Dolphins if we start the season tomorrow. You look at the opening secondary for Miami against Chicago on Sunday when Miami came out in their starting number 1 defense. This is the back 5. They had Bradley Chubb, Chop Robinson, Benito Jones, and Zach Sealer up there. They had Tyrell Dodson and Jordan Brooks. And then they had these 5. I mean, that is what Miami had. Those were the 11 players that Miami had starting on defense. So Campbell clearly is someone Miami has at least ideas about using. I think the Dolphins are going to use a lot of 3 safety looks this season. So Campbell does have a starting role, I feel like, if he's able to stay healthy, which is why it's important and a good thing that he is just day-to-day. More injury news to come here in a second, but what an insane sale going on right now at chatsports.com/MIA hoodie. $37. That is $32 off the original $69 price. Sizes are in stock. Links in the description and comments of today's video. Take advantage right now. One more time, chatsports.com/MIA hoodie. Out another week could be the 3 players that missed the preseason game on Sunday. Mike McDaniel said that Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, and Jalen Phillips are in the conversation to play this week, but it is currently undetermined if they will even play in the joint practices on Wednesday and Thursday with the Detroit Lions. Apparently, Jaylen Waddle is dealing with a rib injury that he sustained in the Bears joint practice when he kind of got lit up a little bit there. If that's the case, there's no reason to rush him back. You've got to keep him healthy for week 1. And if Waddle's a little bit banged up, there's no need to play Tyreek Hill either because you can't have him get hurt. Jalen Phillips I'd like to see as he's still trying to get back to 100% full speed after recovering from a torn ACL. I'll be honest, when it comes to these 3 players, I would simply keep them out another week. To me, there's no need to have those 3 push it in the preseason. Like, what are we doing here? Are we really jeopardizing the regular season time in those games that actually mean something just to try to get them reps in a preseason game? No, that doesn't sound like a smart thing to do. So with 3 of your best players, 3 of your leaders in those guys, keep them out. Don't risk another injury occurring. We'll stay on the negative injury front with 2 offensive linemen, Liam Eichenberg and Andrew Meyer. 2 of your top interior linemen, depth pieces. Eichenberg, I know a lot of people don't like him, but the truth is he is one of your best defense or best depth guys on this offensive line. He can play all 5 positions on the O-line. Doesn't do it really well, but he can do at least a serviceable job compared to Jackson Carman and Keon Smith. Andrew Meyer, by the way, was arguably one of the top offensive linemen on the roster before he picked up this injury. McDaniel said they're not returning anytime soon. It's not ideal, and it feels like it's going to be a long time until we see these guys, and they're probably not going to be ready for week 1 based off the verbiage used by Mike McDaniel. And with Liam Eichenberg still being on the pup, I have a hard time believing he would be ready for week 1 for the Miami Dolphins. And this is a major concern. Like, I talked about it on our live show on Tuesday. Make sure you subscribe and join us for that if you haven't already. But this starting five up front, it could be one of the better offensive lines in all of football. I really mean that. Like, if they stay healthy, they're going to be a really solid group. But you look at the depth behind them, and it's just absolutely atrocious. Eichenberg and Meyer are hurt. Brunskill is Borum is atrocious. Keon Smith sucks. Carmen's the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen. Jaylen McKenzie shouldn't be rostered in a National Football League. And Jermaine Ifedi was embarrassing on Sunday against the Bears. The point is, the second line and third line O-linemen on this roster are absolutely horrific. And I hate to be mean. I actually don't hate it because it's my job. They should not be available to be on an NFL roster. Like, I'm telling you, I hate to be doom and gloom Nick Roloff today. If the Dolphins sustain an injury to one of their starting five offensive linemen that keeps one of them out for an extended period of time, this offensive line is going to crumble immediately. Chris Greer did not do enough to address the depth on this offensive line. I know you can't have starters across the board as backups, but you need better players than Jackson Carman and Keon Smith. I'm sorry. It's a serious concern. I mean, you look at the first week grades from PFF on this O-line, nothing changed. They were the worst graded run blocking offensive line in the entire NFL preseason week 1. And they were 30th in pass blocking. That is not an indictment on the starters. I want to make that abundantly clear because in the first quarter where some of the starting offensive line played, if not all of them, they were dominant. There was actually a point in the game that I saw in their live grading system, Miami had the number 1 graded offensive line in the preseason. That was after quarter number 1. But once quarters number 2, quarter 3, and 4 happened, that's where you get to this. It was an atrocious performance by the second and third lines of this group. And it's a serious concern. Are you concerned like me? Type Y for yes or type N for no. Let me know your thoughts. I don't know how you aren't concerned about the depth on this entire offensive line. I'll say it for a third time. Starters, I think they're going to be awesome. But they also need to stay healthy because one injury happens and we're screwed. Speaking of injuries, Darren Waller's out another week, folks. Mike McDaniel, after saying late last week that he anticipates Waller returning to Dolphins practice for the first time, activated off the PUP list this week that we're currently in, well, not going to happen. McDaniel said it would not be fair to Darren Waller to activate him off the PUP list during joint practices with the Detroit Lions. I'm getting nervous, man. I understand you don't want to bring him back for joint practices, but we're inching closer and closer to the regular season. Is Waller going to have any opportunity to get into the flow of this offense, to get any rapport and chemistry with Tua Tagovailoa? I don't know, man. And he didn't play all of last season. He was retired. And how am I supposed to believe this is the Dolphins' number 1 tight end? That's where it was listed on their first unofficial depth chart. Like, I don't know. I said it when the trade was made. I was optimistic. I was intrigued. But I would have signed another tight end and made another move. I would have signed Noah Fant. I think you should have. Unclear if Miami even offered him a contract. Unclear if he would have accepted it. Maybe he really was fiending and jawing at the idea of playing with Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Maybe it was never a chance. But I have a hard time believing if Miami offered him a decent enough contract, he wouldn't have signed here knowing that he would have been the number 1 starter. I know the tight end position isn't that important for Miami, but I can't do a full year of Pharaoh Brown and Julian Hill, especially with how poor they looked in the preseason game on Sunday. I know it's preseason, but, man, it was ugly. It was ugly. All right, I'll do it for today's show. Appreciate everybody watching. If you're still watching and aren't subscribed, what are you waiting for? You clearly like what we're bringing to the table. Daily updates on this football team, news, rumors, everything in between. Subscribe and join us today.